This is the Rodney Bull Show, bringing you truth about money they never taught you. Now, here's your host, the man himself, Rodney Bull.
G'day, listeners. What's cracking, money stackers? Welcome back to the Rodney Bull Show. Today's guest is someone who believes becoming a millionaire isn't luck. It's a choice, and I tend to agree. Tony Bradshaw is the author of the book, The Millionaire Choice. Millionaire or not, you can choose. Founder of the Purpose of Wealth Live events and host of both the Millionaire Choice Show and the Get Business Smart podcast. With more than 25 years in business leadership, serving in director roles, VP, CIO, and COO roles, Tony's built his career at the intersection of money, business, leadership, and life. He's also spent years inside Dave Ramsey's world, which is one hell of a world to be tied up in, I can tell you now. Helping lead the company's digital transformation and contributing to the growth of the business from 3 million to 125 million, which is some serious growth. So, and what makes Tony's message stand out is this, I reckon. He believes wealth doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intentional decisions, better habits, clear planning, and learning how to lead yourself well, financially and personally. So if you want to get smarter with money, build stronger in business and create more freedom for your family, and that's what we're about here on this show. This one's going to bring a lot of value, folks. So let's get into it, eh? Tony Bradshaw, welcome to the show, mate.
Rodney, I appreciate you with that intro. That is the first truly authentic Australian intro I've ever been on, so thank you very much for that.
No, my pleasure, mate. And that's what we're all about here, mate, is authenticity, 100%. As you can see, it's a pretty authentic background today. So I'm on location, away on a little business pleasure business trip this weekend. So
yeah, I think the only thing that might make it a little more authentic if you had a big gator hanging down off the tree there in the background. That might make it a little more authentic.
The beach is only about barely 50 metres over here to me right at the moment, and there'll be a few of them swimming out there in the ocean. I can guarantee you that. I'll be dumping in there later on today to have a swim with them.
Oh my goodness!
So
now, those would be saltwater. Those would be saltwater crocs, right, Rodney?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. They're hungry buggers. They don't mind having a chew on
you.
They
get a lot larger. Don't they get a lot larger, like 25 feet or something like that?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, they can get up to like 30 foot. Yeah, we've had them caught that big here previously in the past. You know, big crocodiles. Yeah, make short work if they get a hold of you. But yeah, you know, like that, probably by the time they're 3 meters, 3.5 meters, they do some serious damage to you.
Yeah, I bet.
Anyway, Tony, it's a real pleasure to have you on here, mate. Could you just start out by giving a little bit more of your background history, mate? Just a quick rundown so people can understand on where you come from, like where you started from early in life and to get yourself to where you are now, mate. And then we'll get into some questions, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in a lower income kind of family. My dad dropped out of school when he was in like 10th grade to support himself. He grew up in a broken home. My mom grew up in a broken home. A lot of siblings, but not a lot of structure in the family. So when my parents got together, they were kind of a little broken themselves, and things were kind of off track. And then they made some changes in their life, and then got me in a better situation. But we grew up, with the power getting cut off, the water getting cut off. My dad sent me out a few times, turned the water back on because we needed to take showers. And then, then the water company eventually came and padlocked the water system. I think there was a time they even took the meter out because my dad kept cutting the meter, cutting the water back on, even though it didn't pay the bill. But yeah, bounce checks, happening. My dad would spend money that he didn't tell my mom he spent out of the ATM. Next thing you know, you got 5 bounce checks and $100 in checking fees, things like that. And so that was my life growing up. So when I turned 25, small wonder, I was kind of living the same lifestyle, made $39,000 W-2, which was our taxable income. And when I saw that and realized I was $16,000 in debt, I'm like, man, this is a bad formula to make that much money because I didn't know where it went. I was living at home with my parents, paying $200 a month in rent That's $2,400 a year. And, I had it easy. Like I was like, where'd all that money go? So I realized I was in trouble and I started learning about money, which is something I normally do is just learn new things. If I did anything right in life, it was really about just learning new stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I went to the bookstore, grabbed some magazines, started reading about money, and then I realized that money's really not that complicated. If you learn a little bit, you do things a little bit differently, you can end up in a pretty good place. So that at 25 is when I did two things. I made what I call my millionaire choice. That was my choice to become a millionaire. And I put together what I call my millionaire plan. And that was my plan to become a millionaire. So I made the choice and created the plan. And my plan was to be a millionaire by age 40. And so that was kind of my journey. That's where it started. And then I got into computers. I went to school for engineering. I liked math. I liked cars. That sounded like engineer. So I went and did engineering for 4.5 years, got out, did it for 6, and learned about computers. And then the computer technology world just really fascinated me. And so that led me into internet development, where I was building applications online. And I wasn't really sophisticated. It was the early days of the internet, so I was doing basic stuff. And then was able to make a career transition shift to the Dave Ramsey organization. He was actually hiring some internet people at the time, and I became
Okay.
one of those first internet people that he hired. And
Yeah.
then that ended up springboarding more into like a digital entrepreneur position, where we were trying to figure out how to make money online with Dave's products. And that's where, even though we grew it to about 125 million, about 80 million of that was through the internet, through
Wow.
lead generation or e-commerce, B2B commerce, e-commerce. So we built, consumer-based online store. We built business-based online stores where churches could order. All of these different systems that we created online during the time I was there, and then had a really good run. And then I got fired, and that happened in 2016. And
Funny
so
how
they
you
said,
often
"Hey,
you
we
hear
don't
that
need."
story.
Yeah, yeah. And it was like, "Hey, we don't need you anymore. It's not working out." So I left, and then that's when God pulled me into another company, and I was able to go into another financial based company unplanned. They found me. I did not find them, and then I started writing my book at that time. That was 2017, and then that book became the Millionaire Choice, which is the brand that I use right now. And then I've done, a few books since then. I've got a book called 31 Days to Get Money Smart. It's
Yep.
31 day,
Sure.
just a lesson a day for 31 days, just something simple, about 70 pages long, super simple, just to get people thinking differently about money, because a lot of people are just stuck, Rodney. They're stuck doing the same things over and over.
Oh,
And that's why they don't really build wealth. They don't learn anything new. They don't make any changes. They just keep doing the same cycles that we were programmed with when we were young, right? We get programmed in school, and then we just keep doing the same things our whole life. And that's one of the main reasons people don't find success, because they just keep doing the same things over and over and nothing changes.
so true, mate. So true. I couldn't agree more. Um, so Tony, you talk a lot about the millionaire choice, mate. And so let's start there, eh? Today, and probably cover a little bit more of what you just went into then, maybe in a bit more depth. What is the actual moment where you reckon where someone makes that choice?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, what I've learned about people since I've been doing this millionaire thing is that most people don't have a financial vision for their life, so they keep doing the same things over and over. So they don't envision anything different than what they're already doing. So they're stuck, and that's why they're stuck. So what first has to happen in most people is you have to get some there has to be some kind of catalyst that causes you to shift your mindset. So most people are living in a scarcity mindset. I don't have enough. I don't make enough. I don't pay my bills. All these different things that are scarcity minded, but they live there comfortably. And then I have what I teach is the 4 buckets rule, Rodney. The first bucket is you're broke. You're just in a broke bucket, right? That's where
Yeah.
you're living. So you can't pay your bills. You're struggling, right? The next bucket is the just getting by bucket. Things are a lot more comfortable. You can pay your bills. Maybe you can save a little bit of money, but you can make ends meet. So you're comfortable, you're right. So just getting by. The third bucket is where the real shift happens, and that's what I call the future millionaire bucket. That's when you're actively, your mindset has shifted. You're mentally aware of wealth. You're mentally in an abundance mindset. You're trying to build wealth, and you're going to be a future millionaire, right? So at some point in the future, you will be a millionaire because you are working on that task. You are working to build wealth. And then the fourth bucket I call the millionaire bucket. Now, there's a couple buckets after that, but we really don't talk about those because we're really just hyper focused
Yeah.
on getting people to that millionaire status so that they can shift. But you got to shift your mindset first, and there has to be a catalyst for that. So in my case, my catalyst, Rodney, was getting that W 2 and realizing I was $16,000 in debt. That's all it took. I'm like, I made that much. I don't have it. I'm in debt this much. That's a bad formula. Time for a change. Other people have a different catalyst. Maybe they're super broke. Other people I've met, they go and clean rich people's houses and they go, oh, I like this. This is nice. How can I do this? How can I have a house like this? So some people get there, have that mindset shift from an abundance space where they see something good. I had one friend, his name is JV Crum. He has a podcast as well. He was 5 years old, Rodney, and was in the store with his mom. And she said, don't ask me for a candy bar. I don't want people to think we're poor. And so she was telling him, I don't want to tell you no in front of people. And so I don't want people to think we're poor. So little 5-year-old JV goes, what's wrong? Why can't I get a candy bar? I want a candy bar. Why can't I get a candy bar? He thought about it. And he goes, I know. When I grow up, I'm going to be rich. So at 5 years old, he started telling himself and telling his parents when he grew up, he was going to be rich. And he was a millionaire at age 25. So It took him 20 years, but he grew up with that mindset shift. And it was because of that candy bar. So you'll see people, they make their mindset shift for different reasons, but usually it's around pain or opportunity.
Yeah.
More than likely around pain before they make that shift, but they have to make the mindset shift first.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so huge, eh? I've found it for myself personally too, mate. Probably a lot later in life than a bloke should have stumbled across it. I wish I'd have stumbled across it earlier, but hey, we come to the places that we come to at the times that we're meant to, I guess, eh? So
yeah, but the good thing about that, Rodney, is even though you're a little bit older, you're probably a little wiser. So, say a 25-year-old guy makes that shift, he's going to be younger, not as wise. So he's not going to be probably as driven for that change as like say you were, who did it maybe a little bit older.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hopefully I'm not there yet, mate, but I'm working on it, eh? Working on it, and that's what we're here about today, mate. Trying to help as many other people get there as well, because the situation for a huge amount of people is really bad and getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
Where all our freaking bullshit governments are taking us, and the powers to be who run our world, sadly. So, and I believe too that the good Lord wants us to be wealthy, mate. He provides abundance to us. So,
yeah, it says that. Yeah, the word says that too.
Yeah, for sure. Tony, you spent more than 25 years in business leadership, mate, and helped scale major businesses. What was your personal journey with money like yourself? And I know you've covered some of it, but did you always understand the wealth and the way you know it now, or was it in regards to that mindset shift yourself, and what mistakes shaped you along the way, you reckon?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, Rodney. You're going to evolve. So when you get money smart, you got to think of it as a journey, right? So I've done programs where I've put together concepts of like, what would school look like if you were teaching people about money in school? Like right now in the United States, we have one semester financial class. That's all they teach is one semester.
Yeah, I'm not even sure we get that here in Australia. They purposely don't teach us anything about that.
Yeah, I think what they should be doing is teaching you about money 12 years. So 12 years, 1 through 6, you're learning the basics. Yep. 7th grade to 8th grade, you're learning about investing, basic investing. And then, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, you're learning about business. You're learning about stocks. You're learning about real estate, things like that. So more advanced stuff. So like think of it as 3 stages: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And you should have 12 years of education. So as an adult, you should also have 12 years of financial education, if not more. So when you start learning about money, you have to think of it as a process that you're going to keep learning. So when I started learning about money at 25, I learned about getting out of debt. Like debt's bad, don't do debt, right? I learned about mutual funds. So I started putting about $500 a month in mutual funds. I learned about stock trading. So I started stock trading, and I learned a little bit about real estate. So I did not buy any real estate at that time. I tried to go buy a house and get my friend to move in as a renter. So I was going to get him to pay half my rent. So I had all the right basics. Those are the basics, right?
Yeah.
So get your basics down. If you can get a piece of real estate, have an apartment with it if you can, like a basement or something you can make a little rent money on. So think of, that's how you want to buy real estate. Get into it, have a renter, right? Could be an apartment over the garage, could be anything, but as long as you have some money coming in through your rental property, that's a good asset. So you want to buy assets that actually build revenue. Now, that was my original plan. Okay. So when I went to work for Dave Ramsey, I shut a lot of that down. And because Dave is purely a mutual fund guy. He's like a 401ks, mutual funds. So I decided I was going to invest like Dave did because I was working for Dave. So that was the wrong thing to do because my wife told me to buy Apple stock in 2001. It was $3 a share. $3,000 in Apple stock would have grown into about $4 million. So nice. I did the wrong thing, right? I did the wrong thing. So that's where, when I left Dave's in 2016 and wrote my book is actually everything I knew about money up till that point. And then in 2020, when I launched my podcast, and we've done 153 episodes talking to other millionaires, that's where I really started to learn more about wealth and how to build wealth. Because, it's 153 people. Only about 5 of those people on that show invest like Dave does. Yeah. So only about 5 of them. The rest of them are doing different things. They're buying real estate leveraged. They're buying apartment complexes. I talked to a guy the other day. They only buy apartment complexes with at least 100 units in it because of the cash flow metrics and how it works. I've talked to other people that buy storage facilities, and they build businesses out of storage facilities. So there's all these different ways to make money. And so I've just learned a lot of those different ways to actually build wealth now, and I'm starting to apply them to my own to go. So think of it as like 2 phases. There was the beginner, 3 phases really. There's the beginner phase, then there's the Dave Ramsey phase for me, which is 15-year span. And then there's this new phase where I'm going, okay, this is how you really build wealth and massive amounts of it. And it took this learning on how to get there. I've got one friend who is a day trader. He pretty much, that's what he does, and he buys some other stuff. But his biggest day in the stock market was $1 million. He made $1 million in one day. So those are the people that when you learn how to build wealth, you are these principles. So I have a thing that I teach, Rodney, called the 3 forms of real wealth, and that is land and real estate, gold and silver, and then businesses that produce a good or service. So why did I not say the stock market? Because the stock market is a Ponzi scheme. It is a scam. It is. And now you can make money in the stock market. Yeah, but you better transfer it. You better transfer it out.
Get it out.
Yeah. So you don't want to have 100% of your wealth wrapped up in the stock market. If you want to have 50% in there, that's fine. But have the other 50% in either land and real estate, gold and silver, or businesses that produce a good service that are not in the stock market, that are, small businesses that are localized. That's a better way to do it. And so that's kind of the journey I've been on since I started at 25. I'm 55 now, so it's been 30 years. But I would say for 15 years while I was with Ramsey, I didn't learn anything new about money. It was the same thing over and over. I did learn a lot about business. Dave Ramsey is a tremendous businessman. So I learned a lot about business while I was there, but I didn't really learn anything new about money that I didn't already know before I went to work there. So those are the big things. And then obviously, insurance is something I didn't know a lot about. And insurance is really important. Like, how do you protect yourself with your insurance? A big thing I've learned more recently, Rodney, is the whole thing about wills, estates, and trust, right? Like what that looks like.
Yeah, and, I'm digging into that stuff myself at the moment. So.
Yeah, right. So learning to go, hey, let's don't do a will. Let's do a trust. Let's put everything in the trust so that you don't own anything. The trust owns it all. Yep. And it protects it even further, and then you can hand it over to your kids. There's no inheritance tax because it's all in the trust. There's nothing that happens. The government doesn't get involved. It's just a perpetuating model that kind of goes from generation to generation to generation. And then if you set it up right, the family can benefit from it, but it can keep growing itself. And so that's a really important thing to think through.
And that's the stuff that the truly wealthy do, isn't it? And that's how they build and continue passing on generational wealth and growing generational wealth. So that's been my learning so far through my research into it. And so, it's nice to hear you actually reiterate that, mate, that hopefully I'm on the right track.
Yeah, well, I think you are. I don't have it all figured out. I'm starting to learn about that. Right now we have a couple pieces of property because we had to scale down a little, but we had 3 pieces of property. Now we have 2. But I did pretty well. We bought a $600,000 farm/house back in 2021. That house is now worth like 1.8 million.
Yeah.
So it's gone up quite a bit in value. So even though I've been, the last 10 years, I've kind of been on this learning journey on writing these books, doing these podcasts. So I haven't made a lot of income, but the assets I have actually gone up in value. So my net worth has increased,
Yeah.
but it's increased because of the assets I have. I haven't made a lot of income. I haven't grossed income. So, that's another learning for me is, how do you build wealth? Well, you build it through assets.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things I've learnt from a very famous person from your neck of the woods, mate, is Robert Kiyosaki. And he just reiterates that all the time. Like the rich don't work for money, mate. They work for assets and cash flow, assets that cash flow for you. So and it's so true when you get to wrap your head around it, and to truly understand what the difference is between a liability and an asset. Like there's so many things in life that we think are assets, but they're actually more liability than what they are as an asset.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So, Tony, in regards to the millionaire choice, for people hearing that phrase for the first time, what exactly is the millionaire choice, mate?
Yeah, so it really is just your choice to become a millionaire. So it's when you shift from being more of a maybe scarcity mindset or maybe a poverty mindset, or maybe you don't even have a mindset. You're just kind of like living your life and you're not even thinking about it. You're not conscious about it. So the millionaire choice is for you going, hey, I'm waking up here. I am going to go build some wealth. I am going to be a millionaire one day. I'm going to put that stake in the ground, make that choice. Now, after you make that choice, you have to do a little bit of planning because then you got to put a date behind it. And that's where the plan comes in. So you make the choice, you create your millionaire plan, and that millionaire plan is the date that you're going to become a millionaire. So for me, I was 25 when I made my choice, and my plan was to be a millionaire by age 40 and
Yep.
live off of 10% of the income, which was $100,000 a year. Because I figured this is going to spin off 10 grand or 100,000 a year. That's twice what I'm making now. Life's going to be glorious, right? But I didn't have a lot of things figured into that equation. So I was able to hit the millionaire level, but I was not able to live that lifestyle because I had 6 kids by then. So,
That's all right.
you know,
We need to have lots of kids, mate.
expenses
Kids
expenses
are great.
came up. So that's what the millionaire choice is, Rodney. It's that conscious decision to go, hey, I am not going to live in poverty. I am not going to live in scarcity. I am going to build some wealth and I'm going to become a millionaire. And then it's going to happen after you make that choice. You figure out what the date is and you're going to make that happen by. And then you start working that plan, right? And what I found is for a lot of people, when they set that date and that plan, then what happens, the next thing that happens is they start figuring out how to accelerate that date. So when I had one client, I think we had 12 years. They already had quite a bit of wealth established already. And we said, this is when you're going to be a millionaire by this date. And then
Okay.
what they did is they started calling me back and going, hey, I just figured out how to accelerate it by 6 months. And so they're starting to figure out how to speed it up.
Yeah.
Because once you have that level of clarity, your brain will go to work on that problem. And the problem is, hey, I don't want to take that long. I want it to be faster. So let's figure out how to make it faster. And that's what actually happens. I've seen happen over and over again. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, awesome, mate. Awesome. So I guess you would say, like, what separates people who choose it from those who don't, mate? And it's definitely got to come back to that mindset shift. That's from my understanding and through my learnings.
Yeah, the other thing, people that don't, there's actually like 3 myths that apply to people, and it really is them how they make excuses on why they're not building wealth and how they're not building it right. So one of those is money is the root of all evil. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard
Yeah,
that.
yeah, mate. For
It's
sure.
it's not the
Taught it
it's not the
myself for quite a
accurate.
long time, actually, Tony.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
and
you
and
hear it
that's
so much
really.
growing up, and it's something that's, I think, again, is brainwashed into us and indoctrinated into us over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that's a blocker. So it becomes a mental blocker. It also becomes a mental excuse. Oh, I don't want to be rich because rich people are evil, right?
Yeah,
Rich people are bad, right? So you get the money's the root of all evil, which is not the actual quote. It's actually for the love of money is the root of all evil.
yeah,
So it's the love of money that's the problem. If you love money, then you're going to possibly have issues. The other one is the rich people are bad. So rich people are not bad, not any more than poor people. You got poor people that do wicked things. You got rich people that do wicked things. You got rich people that do good things. You got poor people that do good things. So rich people are not bad, but that's another excuse that people tell themselves that keep them from building wealth or even embracing the idea of building wealth. And then the third one is rich people got lucky. So they must have got lucky, right? And it's just not true. It's the truth is that they worked hard for what they did. They got smart. They learned how money worked. They applied those principles to their lives. And that's the cool thing about building wealth, Rodney, is that it's a repeatable process. It's pretty much the same for everybody. Every wealthy person pretty much did the same things. And so once you learn that process, you can also do it. And so that's what makes it so powerful is that it is a process. It is repeatable, and virtually just about anybody can do it.
Yeah, for sure, mate. For sure. I agree. And it's, for me too, it's been a big mindset shift over time. And just to continue to chase that education for me is the key. Just keep chasing that education as much as you possibly can, because we don't get it in our so-called education system. And sadly, our parents and our grandparents all went through the same bullshit education system, and you get taught nothing and you just get dumbed down. So it's finding that mindset shift and keep pursuing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Now, mate, in regards to the 1% better rule, you talk about that quite a bit, and 1% better every day. Why is that so important when it comes to money and wealth building? What does that compound to over time, do you reckon?
Yeah. So it really is more of a principle. So if you were to, let's say, for example, use this number, if you grew a business 22% a year, that would, in 3 years, that would double the size of the business. So you're doubling your business every 3 years. If you were doing, let's say it's a 10% growth a year. So think about improving yourself by 10% a year. It takes you about 7.2 years to double yourself or to double your money or whatever that principle is.
Yep.
So that's called the rule of 72. So the concept of 1% better is just really this: invest in yourself a little bit each day so that you can grow and become a better person. So what is it that you're doing every day that's growing you just a little bit so that it compounds over time? So if you did 1% a day, not compounded, that's 365% growth a year. Like if you do that principle every day for a year and you try to do, instead of letting life happen to you, you happen to life, right? So you do things that are valuable. At the end of a year, you're going to be a totally different person. You're going to be totally unrecognizable. You won't even recognize yourself, really. So you want to do that. So that could be done through reading. It could be done through podcasts. Could be done through conferences. Whatever it is you have to do, you want to do it to become 1% better. You don't want to sit around watching too much of the World Cup. You don't want to sit around watching too much of football or golf or, fill in the blanks or sitcoms or television or Netflix or Amazon Prime. Those things are all distractions that rob you of your time, and they rob you of your future. So, they've even, these companies have even figured out how to make money off of us while we're sitting on the toilet, right?
Yeah, scary
so you're
stuff,
sitting you're sitting on the toilet flipping through Facebook or flipping through YouTube Reels or flipping through Instagram Reels. They are making money off of you while you're pooping.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. So that's what you want to do, is figure out how to grow yourself. So start learning something new, on the internet or on a book or whatever, and do a little bit of that every single day. So like when I went to work for Dave Ramsey in 2001, I was actually put in leadership about 90 days after I got there. They put me in leadership over 3 people. Those 3 people really rebelled against me being put in leadership over them. They did not like it. And so much so that Dave and the company came back and said, hey, that was a mistake. That wasn't supposed to happen that way. We're not doing that. He's not in charge of you guys. He's not in leadership. They backed away from that. Now, what that told me, though, from a God perspective, is I said, I think God's trying to show me that he wants me to be in leadership, but I'm not ready. Because if I was ready as a leader, those 3 people would have followed me gladly if I was the person I needed to be. So, but what that did for me is it started me on this leadership development journey for the next year. So I started reading every book I could get, asking my boss, what leadership book should I read? What should I read? So I started reading all these different leadership books. I did everything I could for a year to grow as a leader and as a person. And what happened at the end of that year is I did get put in leadership, and that ended up becoming a major leadership role in the company. So it went from web team leader to director to executive director to VP to CIO and to COO inside the company. But it started that year when I said, I need to become a better leader. How can I do that? And it started with reading books. And I just want to add one more thing there. When it comes to reading, because a lot of people don't like to read, even with me saying this, they're probably skins crawling, going, oh, I don't want to read a book. The reality is, reading books and reading things has been a true self development process for over like 5,000 years.
Yep.
When you think about kings and queens and nobles and the people that founded our country, they were all readers. They didn't have television. They didn't have all this different stuff that's out there. They read, they wrote and read. And so that's a big thing to think about, is that we have this thing at our fingertips that can make us successful if we use it. And it is tried, true, and proven, and has helped millions of people become successful over thousands of years. And so we just have to apply it. That is the 1% rule, is that you're doing something every day to become a little bit better than you were the day before.
Beautiful, mate. Love them words. That's and it's just spot on, And it's been in my experience in life. I was somebody who wasn't a book reader for a big portion of my life, and then I started getting into it, and I read a lot of books these days. I listen to a lot of audio books, consume a lot of content through podcasts and stuff, and just hunting education all day, every day, just looking for it. And I can tell you now, in my journey so far, especially getting into the side of reading books and that, like I can vouch for that fact that it's made big changes in me, and just led me off in so many different directions, and to gain so much education and knowledge from so many other people out there who have put it down on paper, people who have been tremendously successful. So there's just so much to be gained from it, eh? So much, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. A few other questions here. I might skip this one and might move on to this one here. In regards to building generational wealth, Tony, what does real generational wealth actually look like, you reckon? Because a lot of people think it's just leaving money behind. But I think it's bigger than that, For myself, I'm a big believer in trying to build legacy and leave legacy for my children and grandchildren. But I don't just want to hand it on, because you see that happen. And if the education isn't passed on through to them upcoming generations, they just squander it. So what would you have to say about that, mate?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that one out. So the best thing I can say right now is, like, when you figure out how to, try to teach kids about money, a lot of times if you follow the Ramsey way or some other people, they're going to start teaching budgeting first for kids. How do you budget your money, And I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think you should really teach your kids how to multiply their money. So really focus on investing and what investing looks like. So once a kid learns that they can take $1,000 and turn it into $2,000 without working, their whole mindset shifts, and they start going, how can I buy more assets? How can I do more of this, instead of just earning money and spending money, right? So, or, buying cars or buying computers or whatever they need to do. So I have some very frugal children overall, but I haven't done a good job of teaching them how to invest. I've talked about it a little bit, got them doing a little bit of investing, but it hasn't really cemented into who they are as people. So I'm still working on that. So first thing you should do is teach them how to invest. That's the big thing, because that will constrain their budget. If you start with the budget, what they start investing is what's left over from the budget. So that's why you want to start with investing, because then that shapes their budget. And so you might get a kid, and what I try to teach my kids is they need to invest about 50% of their income to assets. So live off 50%, pay debt, whatever you got to do with 50%, do that. But the other 50%, you need to do investing with that. So you need to think about the bulk of your income, the money that you make, buy assets with it, similar to what Robert Kiyosaki was talking about, you mentioned earlier. Yeah. After that, what I'm looking at, Rodney, is how to build a real estate empire inside of a trust for my family. So, and I'm thinking of it like this way. If you go and buy, let's say you start with maybe 100 units of an apartment complex inside of a trust. So that creates income. So if you say, well, let's just use a simple number, $1,000 a month in rent on 100 units, that's $100,000 a month. Okay. Yep. So you put that in a real estate trust. In a trust. that becomes an asset, and then you let that asset continue to acquire new assets. And so you start go buy a second one, you buy a third one, you buy a fourth one. So now think about like having, we have 1,000 units doing $1,000 a month. Now you're spending off $1 million a month in income, right? Okay. So now think generations down, like 5, 10 generations down, you still got this system. This is continuing to build, so the money never runs out. You have to have family members that manage it, but that money never runs out. And then you can take rules and put inside of that trust and go, here's how things work in our family. So maybe when somebody gets born, one of their inheritances might be one of these units in this apartment complex. So instead of going and having to go buy a house on debt, they have a place to live.
Yep.
Right?
For sure.
So they have an inheritance that they're born with. From the time they're born, they get an inheritance, which is this asset. And then they have this asset that's theirs that starts spitting off money into, if it's $1,000 a month, then it could be 12. As a kid, they don't need that money, but that house is actually creating income for them, so it can go into a savings account. Yep. And now they're building $12,000 a month in an investment account. So now when they turn 18, they might have $250,000 in cash flow inside of some kind of holding account, right? That came off of this apartment complex that they inherited when they were born. That's what I'm trying to build right now for generations, so that the model's there, that it can perpetuate wealth for 30 generations. So I'm thinking in 1,000-year terms now to go, what does it look like to build?
Yeah.
What does it look like to build generational wealth? And then once you build that system, it can continue to build. And then you got to have like a voting board. So there's probably got to be 5 to 7 to 9 different board members that run that family trust. And so people would have to be hand selected based on their integrity, based on their intelligence, so that you don't get somebody in there that's, running off with Joe's wife or something like that, or
Yeah.
or shooting cocaine on the weekends, right? So, you have to have people that are brought in to the family that can run that. But everybody has an inheritance, and so you keep buying these properties and this real estate, and then the family member gets a soft start. So whatever they do as a child, they're going to at least start off on the right foot. And if they F it up, because they're stupid, well, that's their fault. But you're doing the best you can to equip your family long term.
Yeah, for sure.
And probably
for sure.
there's probably some private school education in there, and some other things like that need to be baked in as well, because the public school system here in the United States is crap.
I think it's
for the most part, yeah.
It's doubly crap here in Australia.
Yeah.
It's rubbish, And I think honestly, this needs to be changed big time. So much about it that's just broken and wrong.
Yeah, well, one of the things I've thought about too under this family model, is even establishing my own school for my family. And so, we'd have it be a private school, but Bradshaws go there for free, and the other kids that attend are obviously paying for the Bradshaws to go there. But that we know there's a good quality education being delivered to the kids through this system, and it's all an ecosystem that's built up. So, and it's all self-perpetuating. The whole thing works together to create a future for the family in general. That's the way I'm thinking these days.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm sort of on the same sort of track myself, mate. I recently come across a really good book called The Family Bank, but I don't know if you've heard of it or come across it at all, by John H. Niebecker. It's really interesting book in regards to trying to build out that same sort of plan there. So, yeah, it's just a matter of trying to keep educating myself about it and work out how to try to educate my children and grandchildren, so that hopefully they can understand what they need to do to be able to carry on and keep building off of that stuff that hopefully I achieve in my time.
Yeah, I'm looking for that book right now.
Yeah, it's a green book called The Family Bank. It's really cool. Really good read.
Key to Generational Wealth, yeah.
Yeah,
I see it right there. Yeah,
there's a few others out there that I haven't got onto yet, that I've come across, but I haven't bought them and read them yet. But yeah, I'm working on it. That one itself is based a lot around life insurance and stuff, utilizing life insurance and stuff like that. But it's basically building along them same lines, building trusts and building wealth into them trusts, and educating the coming generations so that they know how to run it and continue to build it. So yeah,
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
and that's the thing, like that's the problem with society today. I think, like when it's what a lot of technology screens especially have done to people is it's just dumbed us down so terribly and shortened our attention span. We just don't think in long time frames anymore. Everybody's looking for instant gratification instead of some delayed gratification in life, which is where I believe where wealth comes from, is from that delayed
Absolutely.
gratification. I mean, you still got to live life and enjoy life along the way, but yeah, if you're living it too big and too large and enjoying it too much, I think it'll steal that wealth building capacity away from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. The whole concept of whether it's a bank or a credit union, I think credit unions get a little bit more freedom, whereas the banking system is more corrupt. So I think, have to look at the differences between the two of those as well as options.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, we could talk for days and days about the corruption in our banking system, mate. And if we could actually understand how it worked, what's that famous saying? If people knew exactly how it worked, there'd be riots in the street by tomorrow morning. And that's the problem, that we just don't know. I was one of them people that didn't know, and I know how it works now. And it wasn't designed for our benefit, that's for sure. Sadly,
No, sure wasn't. Sure
no.
wasn't.
In regards to business leadership, mate, you say business owners have a responsibility to improve the quality of life for their team, and that's a big statement. But I tend to agree with it myself. What do you mean by that exactly, Tone?
Yeah, so I think one thing is as a person, and this is just how I live my life, is I'm going around trying to go, how can I make somebody's life better today? So if I interact with people, and this really started just like going to convenience stores and going, you know what, I'm going to have one interaction with this person at this convenience store, maybe in my lifetime. Like I may only see this person one time. How am I going to affect them in that one moment? What is it I'm going to leave that's a positive impact? Now, I don't always leave a positive impact on everybody I meet. Sometimes I leave a negative impact, but I try to think that way and go, what is a positive impact I can have? So when you think about leadership and company ownership, some of the people that work for you as a business owner, you may be the best leader that they meet in their entire lives. Like you may be the top person in their lifetime that they ever work with. Like, so think about like if they work for you as an individual,
Yep.
Rodney, or somebody else, but then they leave that job and go work at like Waffle House, for example. Do you guys have Waffle Houses down there, Rodney?
Oh, some similar things like that, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you're talking about low budget, low pay restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they don't have top tier leadership at Waffle House, right? So if you were to think that way, you go, what can I do to leave a positive impact on my employees? So if you adopt that mindset, you can actually transform the lives of your employees and their families. Like it can be something that simple. So for example, I have this principle I teach. If you read 12 money books in 12 months, that's one book a month for 12 months. At the end of those 12 months, you will be one of the most financially educated people on the planet. Think about that. 12 books, 12 months, one of the most financially educated people on the planet, right?
Not much,
A
is it
lot of
really, when you
people,
break it down?
no, it's not. So a lot of people start to transform their financial future when they read one book, which is like Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That
Yeah.
one book is the most quoted book on my show that people come on. I ask them, what's the book transformed your life? Robert
Yeah.
Kiyosaki,
Yeah, man.
right? So, so
Affected
that
me
book,
massively.
so yeah, so one book, right? So if you as a business owner would just take the steps to go, how can I positively leave an impact in my employees' lives? You want to do it around a couple things. One, you want to do it around money. You want to have a positive impact to their money. So make sure you have a plan to have an impact on their money. Could be requiring them or giving them incentive to read a book. The next one would be their marriage, right? 50% of marriages in the United States end in divorce. So that's a big one. So what
Yeah.
can you do to have an impact on their marriage? That could be a book, could be a conference, could be anything, right? Could be offering marriage counseling to your employees, right? The third one that I would say would be your health. And
Oh,
then the
yeah.
fourth one would be parenting, right? So if you just did those sort of things. So like if you went as a business owner and you said, you know what, guys? Sugar's bad for you. Aspartame's bad for you. Sucralose is bad for you. All artificial sweeteners are bad for you. They're all poisonous. They all cause cancer. Don't eat those things.
Yeah.
Here's the things
So
you should
true.
eat. If you just If you just did that and say, hey, let's look at your diet. Let's get the crap out of your diet. Let's put the good things in. If you just did that, you would probably cut cancer rates by 90%.
Yeah.
And so that's the impact that business owners can have in their employees' lives in those four areas, is to just have a little bit of a plan, have a little bit of an impact across those four areas, and you're going to you're going to transform your team, you're going to transform your company, because your people are better. Your people are becoming better people, and because of that, your company will become a better company. So I think it's extremely important to do that. And as an owner of a business, is to figure out how you can have those kinds of impacts. I actually want to build a model around that and a plan so that companies can go implement that. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to be working on it soon.
That's beautiful, Tony. Bloody oath, mate. I couldn't agree more strongly along the lines of what you just said. Like myself personally, I think without a doubt, the two most important things in life in regards to that go hand in hand is health and wealth, and you can't build true wealth without true health. So I think first and foremost, your health has to come first, and that is your most valuable wealth asset in your life. Because without that, you got nothing. You can have all the money in the world, but if you're sick and dying, well, it's probably not going to do you any good, is it? So
No, not at
health
all.
for me personally, on my journey, health first and foremost, focus on that. And then if you're coming from a strong, healthy place of mind, heart and soul, body, physical body, you can build wealth off of that. So I strongly reinforce that, mate. So what you just covered there probably covered the next question, and also talking about developing your team to increase profits, mate. So I reckon that probably covered that next question that I was going to ask you
Yeah,
in
it
regards
did.
to that.
It did, but let me add one more thing to that. So when you're talking about developing your team, I think we talked about like just the who the person is. Those were what we talked about before. Is like, how do you make your team better people? How do you help them improve their own lives? The thing I would add to that is just having a growth plan for your team. So what we did at our
Okay.
company, or at least in my department, is we required each employee each year to come in with an annual growth plan, like how they were going to grow themselves, both professionally and personally. And so they would have to submit a growth plan that included the books, the conferences, the things they were going to do to become better people and better at their job. And so when they submitted that, we would give them feedback on it and go, I think you should add this, or do this thing differently, or do this, and change it. So that way they had a plan on how they were going to become better employees each year, and that made them be able to deliver better results for the company. And it just helps the overall health of the company. So it's not just about health, wealth, parenting, and marriage. That's like more personal. It's also about them professionally. And so that's the one thing I would add is, just give a requirement to put a growth plan together. And then as you do that as a business owner, you'll end up, it'll become more natural to you. It'll become part of your cultural DNA of the business as a whole. And, maybe it'll help you to think about that. You sit down and put your own growth plan together. I think a lot of people don't do that. They
Uh-huh.
just kind of like, maybe they read a book, maybe they go to a conference, but they don't really have a plan. Right. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that I think becomes important. Is like, what am I planning to do this year versus what am I going to kind of like stumble into? Right. So having a plan is a much better option.
100%, mate. 100%. Couldn't agree more. And what's the old saying, like if you don't have a plan, you'll become part of somebody else's plan. And anybody else's plan, you're not going to be priority in it, are you? So, yeah, it's not going to be a very good outcome for you. So,
Yep. Absolutely.
we'll change it up a little bit here, mate, and we'll just push off in a different direction, especially in regards to the way that most people think about wealth and how to build wealth, but the vehicle that they believe that they're building wealth with in regards to money itself, and people even understanding money. I'm a big advocate for gold and silver myself, mate, especially for preservation of wealth more than anything. A lot of traditional wealth building advice is built around dollars and markets and retirement plans, and you spoke about that along the way today, and especially from your time with the Ramsey company and whatnot. But what do you reckon if fiat currency is constantly losing purchasing power through inflation, and people unknowingly build wealth inside a leaking bucket? What is your opinion of your understanding of it so far now in regards to understanding the differences between money and currency and what money really is?
Yeah, yeah. So I teach a couple different principles, and then I'll talk about that. One I teach is I'm sure you're familiar with the emergency fund, right? Concept: 3 to 6 months living expenses in
Yep. Yep.
a cash and money market. I call that old. So what I like is what I call the new emergency fund, which is about 40 to 50% in cash and money market, about 25 to 30% in gold and silver, and then another 15 to 20% in cryptocurrency. Now, why do I do that? It's because here's the thing: fiat currency is fake money, cryptocurrency is fake money. The only
Yep.
real money there is gold and silver, right? Now,
Yep.
the thing about cryptocurrency is that it is the new financial system. So the global bankers are getting rid of the US dollar. They are phasing it out. That's why the US government is $40 trillion in debt, because
Yeah.
it's a
They have to. They
controlled
have to.
demolition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a controlled demolition of the U.S. financial system. And then when they crash it, finally, I think it's really going to crash in 2029 and then to 2031. I think they're basically mimicking the Great Depression. So when we come out of the Great Depression in 2031, that is when I think you're going to see cryptocurrency really kind of be in place.
Yep.
Some people think it's going to happen like tomorrow, right? They think everything's going down and we're going to come back. It's not going to happen that way. They're going to steadily kind of destroy it over time, and then they will bring us back up on cryptocurrency, digital ID, all this kind of crap that they're going to try to push. I hope everybody resists it. I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
all crap, and I hope that we make a return to gold and silver. So what the global bankers did is they took away gold and silver from us in the early 1900s when they instituted fiat currencies,
Yep.
and then they put the central banks in place to control that, and then they just continue to erode the US dollar as they buy the assets. So they're buying land and real estate, they're buying gold and silver, and they're buying the businesses that produce the money. That's what they're buying. They're buying the real wealth
Yep.
with the money.
Yeah.
Now,
With fake money, they're
every
turning
fiat.
fake money into real money and real assets. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's a hell of
I'm
a
going to say
scheme.
something here. Yeah, yeah, I'm going to say something that's pretty controversial right now, and maybe you want to talk about it, but I'm going to say there. Uh, so, have you heard of this thing called flat Earth?
Yeah. Yeah, mate.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you, I'm at the point I think it's 100% real. And so, when you think about flat Earth, and for example, I was telling my wife today, we've got thunder, right? So, when thunder happens, what do you hear after you hear thunder? What do you hear?
The noise,
You hear echo, right? You hear the
echoing.
echo,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Right, right. Okay. So where do echoes occur?
Oh, in hollows, in vacuums, I guess, in like valleys and
Closed
things.
spaces, closed
Closed
spaces,
spaces.
because
Yeah.
the sound waves have to reflect. So if you're hearing thunder rumble, what's it reflecting off of?
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
reflecting
think.
off the firmament. It's
Yeah.
reflecting off the dome, the firmament, right?
Yeah.
Flat Earth principle. So here's the thing. Here's where it gets crazy. So Elon Musk just had $1 trillion offering on SpaceX, right?
Yeah. That's correct.
There's no space as we perceive space. So he basically just created $1 trillion off of something that's totally fake, right?
Yeah.
When you
Well,
look at this.
that doesn't surprise me in the least, mate, because the money itself and the whole system's fake. So it
It's
actually
fake.
makes sense. It makes sense.
But they basically, yeah. And so one of the things I've seen, there's a guy named Eddie Griffin. If you want to check him out, he's a comedian here in the U.S. He talks about flat Earth, and he
Yeah.
talks about Elon Musk and these guys launching these rockets. They launch these rockets out over the Gulf, and they launch on an angle, and they go down. They just crash land in the water. They're not going into space. They're going into the water, but they film it all, right? So anyway, so when you look at the financial system, it's all fake. Every bit of it's fake. So they're raising the U.S. dollar. They're raising the stocks up. They're doing all this stuff, and then they're going to pull the rug out from under it all. So,
Yeah.
and that's going to happen. That's
And
what's going to happen in
always leave the public
2029.
holding the bag.
That's exactly right. And then they're going to move on to China. China's the next thing.
Yeah.
So they're setting China up to be the next superpower. That's why all of our weapons are made outside of the U.S. We don't even make our own shells for howitzer shells in the U.S. anymore. They're made overseas. So
Yeah.
we can't even manufacture a howitzer shell inside the United States. So they are basically using Iran, the Ukraine war. We've been sending some weapons over to Ukraine. They're using Ukraine and Iran to both deplete the U.S. military stockpiles so
Yeah.
that when we do get into war with China, we're going to be undefendable. We're not going to have defense mechanisms. That's what's going to happen, right? So we're not going to have the weapons we need to defend ourselves during that time for a prolonged war. So it's going to be relatively quick, probably. But anyway, back to the thing about the money. The U.S. dollar's fake. The currency before that was fake. All the currencies, fiat currencies, are fake. Every fiat currency in history has always failed. So the U.S. dollar will fail.
Yep. It's been
And
over
then the golden,
4,800 of them throughout
yeah,
time. Over
yeah,
4,800 fiat currencies, and every last
yeah.
one of them have failed and gone to zero.
Yeah, and that's because they're all done by the same people. They're done by the banking families, the cartels
Yeah.
that are out there. So gold and silver is a real asset. So the gold, what's interesting is gold was fixed for since 1930, 32, I think 32,
Yeah,
all the
33
way
when they,
through to
yep. Yep.
1971 or 72. So like 40 years it was fixed. No change in price, $35 an ounce. Then Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard, went from $35 to $350 in the early 2000s. And then from there it's gone up to $4,500. So it's gone up about 10,000% since 1972. So
Yeah.
man, it would have been nice to be buying gold back
All
in the
right for a dumb
70s.
pet rock, eh?
Yeah, and so that's why all these banks are buying up gold right now. The world banks are buying gold in unprecedented fashion right
Oh,
now. Countries are
unbelievable
buying
amounts.
gold. Yeah, but they're still suppressing the price right now, so it's still a good time to get in and buy it. It's going to go up at least another 10x from where it's at.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
another 1,000%. So, but if you would have been buying gold back in the 70s at $35 an ounce.
I wish. I wish.
Yeah, right. If you would have had $10,000 in gold in the 70s, you would have $1 million right now, right?
Yeah.
And if you had a million, it's going to go up another 10. It would be 10 million. So when you think about currency, right? So and then what I think is going to happen, Rodney, is you're going to get into the mid 230s, 2030s, 2031 to 2035, and the U.S. dollar will be dead by then. Um, it'll be off the map. There will be super hyperinflation. All these kinds of things will be happening, and then we'll be moving on to a different currency system. So you have to be prepared for that. Now, one of the things that's interesting is in the U.S. they passed what's called bail-in laws. So in the old days,
Yeah.
2009 they did bailouts. So bailouts were the banks got bailed out by the government. Well, when they pass the bail-in laws, what's going to happen is the people who have deposits in the banks are going to be their money is going to be confiscated by the banks, and then they will be given, I think, issued shares in the bank. So they're going to be converted their dollars into banking shares, and they'll become like part owners, and then the banks will take that money. So they're just going to take their money. So $100,000 are going to take is $100 are going to take whatever they need to do to re-liquefy the banks. So that's a law that got passed. There's another law that's out there that puts the banks in first position on any kind of defaults or anything. So the people, the consumers are like in third position, banks are in first position. And then the other thing is stocks, right? So when people buy stocks in the market right now, those stocks are not being put in their names. They're being put in a group name, and then they're
Yeah.
being put into a ledger. So you become an owner of that stock through a ledger,
Held by
not
that
through actual
Seed and
naming.
Co, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. And so really you don't even own your own stock. So you're putting all this money in the bank, but you're not
Yeah,
actually
you're
getting
just a
stock in your
beneficiary.
name.
Yeah, you're just a
Yeah, you're
beneficiary.
not. So when that happens, they're going to sweep all that too. So they're going to take all the assets when the crash happens. They're going to take all the assets, and the people are going to be pretty much left with nothing. Anybody that's in the market and in those systems is
Yep.
going to be left with nothing. So
Which is
that's
going to
why you go
be
back to
a lot of people.
yeah, it's going to be a lot because everybody's been in 401ks, right? So that's the way the system was designed was to get people to put their money, their hard-earned money into a 401k. So if you take your money and buy gold and silver, you're going to be in good shape. If you bought businesses that produce cash, if you bought real estate, you own it. It's in your name. It's in the systems. It's in something else other than their system. So you have to think about this as systems, and they have designed the system to benefit them, but there's still stuff outside of the system that can benefit you. So you want to really put your money into things that are outside of their system. And
Yeah,
if you
real
do that,
hard,
you're going to be building real
tangible
wealth.
assets, eh? Hard,
Yeah.
tangible assets.
And
Yeah.
I think that's part of the awakening that's happening is people are waking up to that. They are putting money into different assets, and so I do believe that's happening and to a
Yeah.
degree. And so I don't know where it's going to lead us, but that's what I think is happening. So your original question was about currency, gold and silver. So fiat currency's fake, stock market's fake. That's what I call fake wealth. You can still use fake wealth to build real wealth.
Well, that's what they do,
So
isn't it?
real wealth,
People
gold
who
and
built and
silver,
run the
land and real
system.
estate. Yep. Use the fake wealth to buy the real wealth. Bill Gates is one of the largest landowners. Jeff Bezos, both own over 450,000 acres of land.
It's
So
crazy.
they're not just in they're using fake wealth to buy real wealth.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and then lock up all the food and feed friggin' lab grown rubbish to us. Yeah,
Yep,
it's
absolutely.
wild. It's just crazy, mate. To say, I can understand why so many people just think, nah, this is just conspiracy theory. This is bullshit. It's not happening. But the
Yeah.
sad part is,
Well, you
it
saw the
is
bank,
happening.
yeah, you saw the farmers in the Netherlands. Netherlands is one of the highest grossing produce farmlands areas around, and those people went wicked crazy. And man, they were pulling their tractors into towns,
Yeah, yeah,
Brussels, and like spraying poop and manure and everything all over the roads.
yeah,
Like they were by the thousands, tens of thousands,
yeah,
like protesting what they were trying to do, which was the right thing to do. They needed to
yeah.
do it.
But you never seen that on mainstream
We should
media,
be
did
doing.
you? No way in
You
hell.
know, we should be doing that here.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, mate. We should be doing it everywhere because it's happening. They're just slowly but surely just closing in on around us and taking it all away. Taking all
Yep.
the true wealth away. It's disgusting. But anyway, we're doing what we can to help educate people, and that's what it's all about, mate. Educate people, and then people can do the fight back in the right way. Like I'm a big advocate for real estate and owning land and stuff myself as well. I don't know what it's like in America now, but here in Australia, once upon a time, you bought land, you actually got a deed title ownership for your land. Like there was actually a written certificate once upon a time. Now that they took that away back in 2019, they done it behind closed doors in Parliament, and you can't even get a deed for your land anymore. So you can't prove ownership. You know?
Well, the thing here's the thing that's interesting about that is, and what I've learned here is that there's layered levels of law. So what they've done is they've laid a corporate level of law over top of the fundamental law.
Yeah.
And so if you go back to the fundamental law, you can actually challenge them and they can't fight against it. But you have to know this other form of law. So my guess is when you challenge their corporate law, what they put in place with the basics, they have to retreat from that. There's something spiritual, Rodney, about this law thing that's going on, and I don't understand it all.
Yeah, it's
But there
pretty
is
deep.
definitely some depth here that if you understand this common law and you go back to common law, they literally have to retreat. I've seen videos of judges have to backtrack and get out of the way
Yeah.
because these people going to court knew common law and they
Yeah.
were actually able to challenge them and go, who gives you authority over me? And then they can't say anything, and then they just challenge them based on basic common law, which is what the land actually runs on.
Pretty interesting, eh? But how many people even know that, mate? What you just said then, I'm sure a lot of people's heads will be just spinning on a swivel right now, hearing what you just said, but it's true. It's true if you put the effort in to go and do the research and find out for yourself. It's actually very,
Mhm.
very true. And but how many people are going to actually put the effort in to go and educate themselves
Yeah,
about
and
that
I
so that
haven't.
they can stand their
I know
ground?
very little. Yeah, I know very little about it myself. I just know enough that it's out there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. So, we're starting to run up on time here, Tony, and I really appreciate the time that you've donated here today. We've got a couple other questions, but we might have to come back to it again at another stage, mate. So I think definitely have to get you back on because I could talk to you all day, and there's a lot more to talk about. In regards to to like a final thing that you could share with my audience today, mate? If you could teach the average person one truth about money, business, and freedom that could completely change their future, what would it be?
Mm, one thing that could completely change your future. Um, Man, I would just say just invest in yourself. Like think differently, like stretch yourself. Don't get stuck doing the same things over and over. Just go, how can I change myself today? What can I look at? So, and then, create a vision for your future, whatever that is. Just stretch yourself a little bit in the way you think about your life and where it could go and what it could look like. I think that's one of the biggest things. Once you stretch yourself, you'll figure out how to get there. And so just, put yourself out there for opportunity and then invest in yourself. And once you back that up, whether it's a book or a conference or looking at something on YouTube, just kind of grow yourself and invest yourself. That's the best money you'll ever invest is in yourself. I got one friend, asked him how much he invested in himself. He said it's $100,000 a year that he spent on conferences and books and things like
Yeah,
that. Just in himself. Like he says, I invest $100,000 a year just in growth and what I do. And,
yeah,
I can't do that. I would never in my lifetime have been able to do that, but I might have been able to do $20,000 a year. in myself at the stage I was at, but not 100,000, but maybe 20, and that would be money well spent. So that would be my advice.
Awesome, mate. That's fabulous advice, and I strongly support them words, mate, big time. Myself personally too. I think in the last 5 or 6 years, I've been on that journey of really trying to invest in myself, and I reckon I'm probably spending somewhere maybe 10 grand a year at the moment, somewhere between there and the 10 and 20 mark, and it makes a difference. It really does. And find, like you said, finding books and smart other people who are doing it and become successful is the best way to learn. I listen to a lot of Jim Rohn myself. You'd have to know who Jim Rohn is, and his mentor, Mr. Earl Schoaf. Go and do some research on them people and listen to how they educate you. It's just so vitally important, and it's all about building that mindset shift, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a gentleman, I think I forget his last name, is David something, and he's got a big YouTube channel and following. But him and his wife, they were down to their last little bit of money, and they actually pulled their credit cards together and said, we're just going to do this. And they actually signed up for Tony Robbins' program for a year. And I think it was $100,000. It was either 50 grand or 100 grand for the year. And they dropped some coin on it, and they're like, this is our money. This is our last little bit. We're going to do this. And after we do this, we're just going to go get a job. And it was that investment that actually turned his life around. And now I think he makes about 40 million a year in his business. So so it was a great investment, right? So that's important. You just don't know what's going to make that shift for you.
I definitely think I'd call that a turnaround. Well and truly. That's on the up and up. But that's the thing, you got to make that choice, eh? Got to make that choice and just go after it. As far as we know, we only get one go around in this lifetime here in this realm. So, why not? Why not go for broke? What reason could you possibly come up with not to? All right, legends. What a cracking conversation there with Tony today, hey? And hopefully, Tony, you can come back on again in the future, mate, because there's a lot more that I think we need to dig into and can dig into. So it'd be a real pleasure if you could come back on again for us sometime in the future, mate. Before we finish up today, could you just share with my audience where they can find you, mate, and so that they can really start digging into your work as well if it interests them?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to TonyBradshaw.com. That's TonyBradshaw.com. If you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get access to all 3 of my books. So you can download them. That's the Millionaire Choice. Get 31 Days to Get Money Smart. And the book I'm working on called Creating Millionaire Families. So you can download all those for free. And there's also a link on the website, Rodney, that's called the Get Money Smart community. So I just launched an online community about 3 months ago. So it's still in beta phase. And we have about 10 courses on there, money courses. And we have about 3 events a week that we get on and talk to people about money. So you'll be able to get access to that for free right now. So you just have to click that link that says join the Get Money Smart community. And then it'll tell you how to sign up and everything. And I'd love to have people, people listening to you get in there for free. We're going to eventually start charging $95 a month for that. So if you want to get in for free and not pay the $95 a month, go ahead and, click that link and get in touch with me and we'll get you an invitation.
That's awesome, mate. Well, folks, I can't strongly suggest to you enough. Get on there and click that link now because free is a pretty damn good price. It's going to change soon. So we'll make sure your links are in the show notes there, Tony, so people can find you, mate. And I hope people really start digging into your work, mate, because you're sharing some really good stuff. And if you don't do this stuff for yourself, you're just going to stay stuck where you are. And life, sadly, will get worse instead of getting better. And it can be better, 100%. So, folks, you know what to do, eh? Hit the button, like the show, follow it, share it with as many other people as you can, and keep building for truth, freedom, and building a legacy for generations of wealth, mate, eh? Keep on stacking. Cheers, legend. Thanks, Tony. See you, mate.
This has been another episode of The Rodney Bull Show, a Rebel Edge production. Please share with your family and friends, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.